Um, I want to share the screen because you had a tweet that went viral this week, or at least was I thought went viral. It seemed like it had 57,000 people watched it. And I'm going to play it here for people who didn't see this. This is you talking about Brock Purdy and the criticism that he's gotten. Here it is. Here we go. This is Chase earlier. This is
One thing I really don't understand, why people seem to have so much hate on Brock Purdy and they're praying for his downfall. Usually people get behind an underdog story like Purdy's, but not with him. And you think about his path. He made Iowa State of all schools a nationally relevant program in a powerhouse conference like the Big 12. He was passed up by multiple teams in the NFL draft and was Mr. Irrelevant. He made the 49ers 53-man roster as a third stringer, then had to step in for Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance when they got hurt, then went 7-0 and won 2 playoff games before getting hurt in the NFC Championship game. Undergoes that elbow surgery, comes back before anybody could have predicted and was ready for the preseason and the regular season. He's now 16-4 as a starter, and his teammates rave about his character, his personality, and his leadership. He's humble and treats people with respect. But he has one bad game against the Ravens, and everybody's celebrating him failing. I don't get it. What do you think? Let me know.
So that got a lot of response, and it is interesting. It did seem like there were an awful lot of people just kind of waiting around, going, "Can't wait to be like this guy's not the MVP," and it's amazing, really. I mean, you think that people would. It's a great story either way, but for whatever reason, people aren't gravitating towards it and seem to be almost celebrating the fact that he had a high profile a dud of a game and may have lost the MVP in the process. It just seemed like people were excited about that.
Yeah, and a lot of the feedback that I got when I asked for those responses, and I had that crafted in a regular tweet as well as a video because I wanted to put that video up on our YouTube shorts. Everybody's like, well, he was dropped into a perfect situation, and that's why people don't really like him. It's like we're ripping a guy who was taken last in the draft, has exceeded all expectations. I think, frankly, people are doubting him and ripping him because they never gave him any credit and don't want to give him any credit because everybody passed up on him and they missed in their evaluations. But your reason for not liking him is that he was dropped into a scenario in which Kyle Shanahan was his coach and he had offensive weapons like Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. I don't really get it. And a lot of the talk, I think, comes from a lot of casuals. They want to say that Brock Purdy was benched. He threw 4 interceptions. He suffered a stinger for the second consecutive week. The game is out of hand. You don't want him going back in that game. And you're just looking at the box score there saying, oh, he threw the 4 interceptions. If you actually watch the game, I thought that one pick was really bad, and that was the aforementioned red zone interception to Kyle Hamilton. He went through his progressions. He was late to get to Deebo, and Kyle Hamilton was lurking, and he kind of baited Purdy into making that throw. That was an awful throw. But then on the corner blitz with Stevens on the fake handoff quick screen, what a play by Stevens to diagnose that play, number one, bat the football up in the air, and then the defensive lineman 15 feet away is able to come down with that. The throw to George Kittle, I actually thought was on Kittle because he tried to catch it with his body instead of trying to put his hands out there. And while Kittle had a big game and he put up a lot of numbers, I thought he failed on that play. He failed on another dime that Brock Purdy threw on the far sideline in which he layered the football over the defensive back. He got hit on another interception. So when Kyle Shanahan talks about these picks as one of them being really bad, I actually agree because I thought one was a really bad throw on Purdy. The other 3 were kind of fluky interceptions, which didn't go their way. And that's why I'm not panicking all that much about Purdy. That's why I'm not panicking all that much about San Francisco. And going back to the casual talk, yeah, Purdy has all these weapons, right? But his offensive line has been awful. He's thrown from some of the fewest clean pockets among all quarterbacks in the NFL. And you look at his overall numbers this year, he's still number 1 in multiple categories among all quarterbacks in the NFL. And it comes down to executing. And Brock Purdy's been able to execute. And I think that people think of him as the last pick. He doesn't have a bazooka for an arm. He's a little bit smaller in stature. And they love to just pile on a kid who carries himself, who has all these intangibles, who seems like a really polite guy. You know that with all of your interactions with him. And what he's done in his 2 years should be a story that everybody is rooting for. This guy's Mr. Relevant, the underdog story. And for him to be the odds-on favorite to an NFL MVP going into last week, he has a bad game against the number one defense in the NFL and an organization that prides itself on toughness and kicking your ass. It's not a surprise that he struggled, but he's still 11-4 this year. He's completed 69% of his passes. He's thrown for more than 4,000 yards with 2 games left. He leads the NFL in touchdown percentage. He was just leading the NFL in yards per attempt, and he's still thrown 29 touchdowns to 11 picks and played really, really good football. So I don't know. The Niners are a really high-profile team. They're always atop the television ratings, and I think that people just like to pile on a team that is having a lot of success, but it does just really boggle my mind how people seem to be really rooting for him to fail, when in reality, this is one of the coolest stories that we've ever seen in recent NFL memory, in my opinion.
To me, he's an easy guy to root for, but whatever. To each their own. Roberto Davis says either Purdy is a very good NFL quarterback or Kyle Shanahan is coach of the year. It's got to be one or the other. Yeah, I mean, it can't be, Purdy's just lucky to be there, and Shanahan's, not that great and overrated. Either Shanahan's this amazing coach that's making Purdy, or Purdy's pretty damn good. You know what I mean? So it's like, either one. You can't, and I don't think Shanahan's going to win coach of the year votes. So,
Kevin Stefanski should.
I thought Lamar, though, in this last game was spectacular. And I thought McDonald, the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, had some really interesting wrinkles. And I just think that they played a really good game. I mean, they got a couple lucky bounces, but Kyle Hamilton's a special football player.
Yep.
And they've got some rugged defensive players for sure. But like, if the Niners played the Ravens again, it wouldn't be, oh no, this team's unbeatable. I don't think the 49ers feel that way. I know I don't feel that way.
I really want to see the 49ers play the Ravens again, because I do think that San Francisco matches up well with this team. I think their strengths combat one another, and I think that San Francisco would be able to have success. Again, think about this. Like the Niners against the number one defense in the NFL, we're on pace for 500 yards, and they put up more yards per play, more passing yards, more rushing yards. They outplayed the Ravens in some ways, but again, 5 turnovers is literally impossible to come back from. So if you play a cleaner game and if you execute a little bit better, I think that San Francisco can have success against this team. And who's to say, and this is for the conspiracy theorists out there, that Kyle Shanahan didn't want to reveal everything in the playbook because he knows that maybe the 49ers are going to play up against the Ravens again. But again, if you go back and watch the tape, there were a lot of explosive plays to Christian McCaffrey, to Brandon Ayuk, to George Kittle all throughout the game. And then Sam Darnold was able to come in, and he was able to have success as well in moving the football. And despite turning it over 5 times, if San Francisco was able to score right before the 2-minute warning there, they have 3 timeouts, the 2-minute warning, and if they get the ball back, they still have an opportunity to tie the game despite being -5 in the turnover department. That's how fluky and weird of a game this was, and that's why I'm not overly panicked about San Francisco right now.
We get this one from Daryl, who says, Daryl, 49er for life. Smock says, listen, Larry Chase, those people who rip on Purdy only wish their team had gotten him. The haters are going to hate, so let them hate. I love it. So there you go. That's probably well said.